It's Free Speech Fridays, and joining us this week, don't forget, brought to you by the Free Speech Union, FSU.NZ, the champions of free speech in New Zealand. And they've been, they're really starting to notch up some wins in terms of standing up for free speech. The story about the Chinese journalist almost cut down by the harmful Digital Communications Act. Free speech stood up for her and they got her there. Anyway, our guest today, Bob McCoskrie, the CEO of Family First, the no longer registered charity and advocacy group. Bob, good morning.
Do you have to keep reminding me of that?
And from the New Zealand Centre for Political Research, which couldn't get charitable status if it paid for it, is Muriel, former MP Muriel Newman. Muriel, welcome back. Lovely to have you with us.
Thank you, Sean.
All right, look, guys, I want to start off. World War III. I woke up on Monday, came into work on Monday. It was World War III, according to all the mainstream media, and it was all Donald Trump's fault. Were either of you worrying about the global conflagration earlier this week?
No. No. Look, it's just a beat-up, isn't it? Anything the guy does, people are going to pile into him. And when you step back and look at what he is trying to do, he's actually trying to do something that I don't know whether anyone else ever would have been able to go as far as he's gone.
Yeah.
So, I say all power to him, and whether he succeeds or not, at least it won't be for a lack of trying.
Yeah. It seemed to me, Bob, that our mainstream media were desperate to put the worst possible interpretation and scenario on the conflict in the Middle East and clutch their pearls and pull out their hair and say, oh, it's all terrible. It's all because we weren't nice to those Palestinians and because Trump's mad.
Well, that's no surprise. I mean, that's the Trump derangement syndrome, which has been coming through from New Zealand media all last year. We've highlighted that. It was one of my most watched blogs, actually, just highlighting all the examples of the complete irrational statements and approach. But I just want to quote the National Review editors who said, quote, "Every president in this century has promised to prevent Iran from achieving the capacity to break out with a nuclear weapon. Trump followed through on that talk. Both Israel and the US will have emerged from this war with more credibility regarding preemption against nuclear proliferators, a condition that one hopes will put the fear of God into rogue states thinking about pursuing their own bomb." And I thought that was a very good summary of what Trump has achieved. Look, I was surprised. I don't know about you, Muriel, but I saw Matthew Hooton in the New Zealand Herald suggesting that Trump deserves the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah. It is interesting, isn't it?
Tell us, Muriel. The thing was, Muriel, too, you think he's crazy, and then you think there might be some method behind this madness.
Well, I think this is the point, isn't it? That he came into the presidency having obviously spent a long time thinking about what could be achieved. And he had this bold vision of world peace, for goodness sake. And, everybody raised their eyebrows and thought it's, almost certainly impossible. But the guy's giving it a go. And, whether he succeeds in the long term or not, at least he's giving it a go. And we've got to get behind anybody who's trying to bring about peace.
And I think we should. I don't know that New Zealand looked like it was behind Donald Trump. We seem to be firmly and unequivocally sitting on the fence on this one, if anything, leaning slightly towards the Iranians. But what Trump did, I think, guys, was, he said to Israel and Iran, stop fighting. And the Iranians said, yeah, but they're building a nuclear bomb. He said, just give me a moment, hold my beer. There we go, no more nuclear bomb, now you can stop fighting. It's a very simple realpolitik strategy, Bob, and I think it is that simple because the truth is, it is.
Oh, exactly right. I mean, everyone can see the logic here, and you've got one country, Iran, who's building nuclear bombs because they want to bomb a nearby neighbour, Israel. They've made no secret about that fact. They're also funding a number of terrorist groups. And then you've got Israel, who simply wants to defend its right to exist. Look, I thought Luxon was weak and wet on the whole response, almost as weak and wet as Albanese, the Australian Prime Minister. And it's just a little bit embarrassing. I mean, even Sir Keir Starmer from the UK came out and said, no, needed to be done, good decision. And look, I think Trump is just getting sick of winning because, I mean, what he achieved at NATO, getting NATO to finally dig into their own bank account and start funding some of this defence, I think it's been a major win. I mean, the Americans must be loving it because they're finally seeing some responsibility being shown by other countries rather than the US having to come in and mop up after everybody.
Yeah.
So, gee, Trump's had an amazing week, and look, it was that silly leak about, they didn't really bomb the place. And look, they snuck the nuclear stuff off when nobody was looking, despite the fact that we have aerial shots of vehicles outside lined up. You know, apparently we went off and had a cup of tea, and that's when they sneaked away with all the nuclear stuff. Yeah. I mean, you just watch that type of reporting and you just laugh.
Yeah.
And just one other thing, Sean, it has occurred to me that, you know, when you asked originally about the World War III thing, then obviously that would mean major blocks, wouldn't it? All lining up, sort of facing off against each other. And what Trump has actually managed to do is he's managed to get the West to actually up its gear, if you like, up its status, so that it becomes a firm and strong force against a World War III. You know what I mean? So now in the future, once they do start to militarise more than they have in the past, all of a sudden the other guys on the other side are going to think twice about doing anything that's aggressive. So I think that's a long-term strategy win as well.
Yeah. Meantime,
I totally agree
our
with
Prime
Muriel
Minister was in the difficult position, Bob, Mr. Face drawn on a thumb. He was up in China, which made it slightly awkward for him, didn't it?
Well, it made it really awkward when you've got us saying that we're withdrawing funding from the Cook Islands because of Chinese intervention. I mean, you couldn't get worse.
My understanding is that was not Winston dropping him in it. That was just some independent media reporting in the Cook Islands.
I'd love to do an OIA on the texts between Winston and Christopher over there.
I know. It was just dreadfully bad timing. And it's almost guaranteed whenever a New Zealand Prime Minister goes on an overseas trip, something back home takes the shine off it. Muriel, do you think... I mean, I saw lots of social media about him not wearing his T-shirt over his suit, thank goodness, but I'm sorry, it looked like just endless rounds of glad handing.
Yeah, it's all petty, isn't it, when it comes to reporting on something that the coalition does that's positive, which I think the trip was. It had positive outcomes, trade deals. You know, we signed all sorts of agreements and, you know, it means more jobs and more wealth for New Zealand. And somebody has to try and find something to niggle about and bring it all down. And I think the public are getting sick of it, to be honest.
Okay. Do you think we need to, and I'll put it this way, guys, pick a side in geopolitics? Or can we continue to play both sides of the fence?
If you can separate out the economic aspect from the kind of geopolitics, you can. But I think that's the fine line that Luxon is walking at the moment, in that, you know, cozying up to China, even though many of us have major concerns about the fact of exploitation of workers and human rights. And, you know, there's a reason that we can get cheap stuff from China because basically the workers don't get paid much. There's not health and safety. So there's kind of like the trade deal is one aspect of it. I credit to Luxon. I think he's had a good week because he's been seen hobnobbing with some key world leaders, and that always looks prime ministerial, but I agree with Muriel. Is it actually achieving anything? I mean, did he achieve anything by being NATO apart from being in the photo and meeting the very tall Dutch guy, which was a very funny photo. Yeah. You wondered who was tall or who was short. But look, I think in terms of geopolitics, we do need to take sides because I think what Trump has done is given a very clear message to Putin, to North Korea, to Iran, even to China, that we're just not going to put up with them sort of, taking pot shots and being uncontrolled. I mean, his policy was peace through strength, and boy, he's certainly shown that. His foreign policy strategy has been vindicated.
Winston said earlier this week, guys, that this was the most serious situation since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Now, we're all of an age. I was too young to remember it. My mum does, but I just think that was totally over-egging the situation. Don't you, Muriel?
Well, it's hard to remember back, isn't it? And of course, we didn't have access to all the ways of finding out information that we do today. So I just remember it was a very scary time. As kids, at school, the school broadcast various things over the intercom system so we could all hear what was going on. And, we as children were very worried and our parents were worried. So, but now, you fast forward and all of a sudden we can understand what's happening a whole lot more. And, so it makes it less scary for those that take the time to actually look into what is actually going on.
Yeah, okay. But we got through. There hasn't been a thermonuclear conflagration. And in fact, if anything, guys, at the end of this week, I would say the world's a safer place because Iran isn't going to have the bomb anytime soon.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I think anybody who looks at the evidence will see that this was an amazing, feat. I actually heard some of the detail of how they pulled it off and the actual strategy. Most of America's adversaries would likely just look at it and say, wow, that is an amazing coordination and capability of the US military. Russia can't even establish control of the skies over Ukraine. And China couldn't pull off such a stunning surprise attack over, like, for example, Australia. So it really has shown just the impressive nature. I was listening to the detail of the actual strike. It was something like there was 130 planes in the sky at one time. The B-52s or whatever they were flew.
Yeah, it's like organising the Jeff Bezos wedding, mate.
Oh, exactly.
It's pretty detailed.
We actually wanted to, except we had a great outcome from the bombing.
Yeah. We also look a bit silly, don't we, Muriel? We send the Hercules up there to supposedly evacuate people. The government can't say where it's going to land or where it's going to evacuate from people. We then find out no one is bothered about getting none of the New Zealanders in Israel are desperate to get out or want to be evacuated from Israel. And Iran, people can just go to the nearest border, show their passport and get out. That was a bit of an overreaction too, wasn't it, Muriel?
Well, to be fair to them, no one actually knew what was going to happen, did they? So it could have escalated and got a lot worse. And so, I think it was, possibly a prudent contingency measure. However, the first question that sprung to mind was, will the bloody thing get there?
Yeah. It's not a B-2 bomber, but though with their new, the Hercules, these are almost brand new second-hand, the ones we've got.
Right, okay.
All right. Guys, we will take a break now. When we come back, I want to talk about the multi-electoral role. I want to talk about David Seymour, and I want to talk about trips to Tahiti for school teachers. You are with Free Speech Fridays, brought to you by the Free Speech Union, FSU.NZ, the champions of free speech in this country.